It's a strange rage. Judiciary is too critical to the well-being of our country.
Political face-off escalates in Mount Kenya, with rival camps keen on waging a charm offensive.
Na mimi niko tayari, if there is any political price to be paid to protect these women and our young girls, kama kura itakosekana kwa sababu ya hiyo, afadhali ikae.
Matters to do with the alleged resurgence of the outlawed Mungiki sect takes center stage, but is it just a smokescreen? And puzzle as hundreds of residents of Pioneer area of Eldoret say they have been evicted from their homes to pave way for the government's affordable housing project.
Hiyo haiko fair kwa watu wenye walikuwa wameishi estate kwa muda mrefu. Wangefanya hivi, wangewacha watoto waende shule, alafu mtu achipange ahame kwa usalama.
Welcome to the broadcast. We're glad you've joined us on the third day of January 2024. Now, we invite you to engage with us on our social media handles at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. My X handle is at Grace Kuria KE. Now, our sign language interpreter tonight is Catherine Simaloy, and my name is Grace Kuria Kanja. Once again, welcome to the broadcast. Now, more than 1,000 tenants have been evicted from Pioneer Estate in Eldoret town to pave way for the construction of President William Ruto's affordable housing project. The residents who were evicted from 200 county government houses protested the exercise, saying they had not been given prior notice about the eviction.
According to the residents, the government failed to give them prior notice about the eviction from the 200 county-owned houses.
Lipewa kutoka January, February na March. Na kwa saa hii ni January. Hakuna mtu mwenye amechipanga, shule inafunguliwa, wamefanya tu kitu yenye si mzuri. Hiyo haiko fair kwa watu wenye walikuwa wameishi estate kwa muda mrefu.
Further, the residents say the county government promised to give them 10,000 shillings to caution them from the eviction, but most of them are yet to receive the money.
Watu wa kwanza walikuwa wamesema watu 8 wahame, wapewe pesa wahame. Hii wengine twende polepole. Halafu wakasema tutapewa shilingi 10,000 kila mtu. Lakini sasa mpaka saa hii hatujaona wale wanahusika.
Exercise that was conducted to pave way for the construction of 1,508 houses, where there was 9 high-rise buildings, will begin next week after an official launch by the head of state.
Hizi zimekuanga nyumba 200. Sasa hizo governor akasema 200 zile zitakuwa hapa, zitakuwa za county ya watu kukodisha. Lakini sisi hatujapewa express information ile ambayo inatuhusu atisi ta benefit.
Yesterday, top county officials led by Governor Jonathan B visited the area and met up with the affected families to explain to them the benefits that will come with the affordable housing project that is being conducted all over the country. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Thank you, Zainab Mohammed, for that. Now, moving on, analysts have predicted a tough time for players in the private sector due to high taxes and interest rates unless the government stabilizes the economy. Experts say the phenomenon will lead to job losses, which in turn will make even more Kenyans unable to meet their basic needs.
While Kenyans are still reeling from the festivities of the Christmas celebration season, economic analysts have painted a grim forecasted for 2024, especially for Kenyans in the private sector.
Kenya being a net importer, we are so susceptible to foreign exchange rate, in that if the exchange rate continues to depreciate as it is doing right now, we are expected to see increased prices of imported goods, which will consequently lead to an increase in inflation domestically.
According to Stella Swekei from the Standard Investment Bank, many entrepreneurs may be forced to close shop due to heavy tax burden, which will lead many Kenyans to lose their jobs.
We'll see the service sector, not the financial companies or institutions, trying as much as possible to match the rates of return, or to adjust inflation to give or to offer good returns to their investors or their clients. So this will mean that the government will have to lend or to give higher rates for the government securities.
This situation may also be accelerated by the inflation in the prices of goods and service fees, which, despite the prediction that inflation levels will go down, the prices of basic commodities will still be out of reach for many Kenyans.
So higher taxes, for example, in the Finance Act 2023, led to higher prices of fuel, and fuel is a very key input in most sectors of the economy. So if we see more taxes in the Finance Act 2024, it's more likely that inflation will go up. Generally, in 2024, we expect inflation to retreat back to the target band of CBK, that is plus or minus 5%, so it's between 2.5% and 7.5%.
The year 2023 witnessed many Kenyans fight the effects of bad economic times, inflation of goods and services, supply chain disruptions, and rising energy and commodity prices, which reduced their income significantly.
2023, we saw a relatively good supply of grain and food products given the relatively favorable weather conditions, but we are not certain on what will turn out in 2024. So this will either affect the prices of food products, either positively or negatively.
However, in his New Year's message to Kenyans, President William Ruto said that this year, the nation will start to enjoy the fruits of his government's policies to fix the economy.
Nataka niwaambie ya kwamba mwaka huu wa 2024 ni ile mwaka. Hii 2024 ni ile mwaka. Na mimi nataka tena niwashukuru kwamba katika kupanga haya mambo yote tumeelekeza mawazo yetu na mipango yetu sio kwa mambo ya leo na kesho, ni mambo ya usoni na vile Kenya itanawiri tukiwa pamoja.
For TV47, I am Natasha Wairemo.
Thank you, Natasha Wairemo, for that. So let's move on. And tonight, President William Ruto's onslaught on the judicial arm of the government has been met by criticism, according to the Law Society of Kenya, Judicial Service Commission, and the Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association. The remarks by the head of state are aimed at painting the judiciary negatively. Stanley Nyaringeta with the details.
On the 2nd of January this year, President William Ruto publicly directed the executive to defy court orders which disenfranchise the country's development agenda. The president alleged that some sponsoring court process were colluding with corrupt officials to stop implementation.
Hii program ya housing ambayo itapatia vijana hapa Nyandarua kazi 5,000. Niendelee naye ama ningojee hawa watu watupatie ruhusa? Tuendelee.
These remarks have now raised eyebrows among the legal fraternity, with the head of state pointing a blaming finger on the judicial arm of the government on its role in upholding the constitution. The Law Society of Kenya now sharply criticizing the president for his attempts to incite against the judiciary.
The president, therefore, as the foremost custodian of the rule of law, should refrain from undermining the judiciary and instead utilize legal avenues at his disposal to challenge decisions that he finds aggrieving.
The threats by the president, therefore, do not comply with court orders, therefore heralds the return of an autocratic regime and amounts to a constitutional coup.
The Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association has also raised concern on the impact of the remarks of the president on the independence of the judiciary.
Unajua watu wengi Mheshimiwa Rais.
While speaking in Nyandarua County Tuesday, Ruto seemingly launched his onslaught on the judiciary, noting that he respects the judiciary, but the Kenya Kwanza government will not allow judicial impunity. However, the Judicial Service Commission has come under the defense of judges and judicial officers who it says have been subjected to public criticism and vilification for issuing court orders that are perceived to be against state programs and policies. Azimio leader Raila Odinga now telling off President William Ruto that he is the biggest beneficiary of the judiciary.
It is ridiculous to We now hear the biggest political beneficiary of judicial decisions in Kenya's history now accuse the institution of sabotaging him.
The Law Society of Kenya has now urged its members to join the bandwagon of demonstrations next week as they don purple ribbons. Stanley Nyiringita, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you so much, Stanley Nyiringita, for that. So listen, the judiciary has fought back, as you've seen in that report there by my colleague Stanley Nyiringita, and the executive has responded in a statement that has just been released by the Office of the President. It is titled "Just for the Record," and I shall read it out for you. Hear me out, okay? So it reads, the Law Society of Kenya has today purported to advise President William Ruto on constitutionalism and specifically the independence of the judiciary. They need not. I emphasize that. They need not. That is coming from this statement by the Office of the President. So it further says that the President has consistently championed upholding the rule of law and constitutional principles with a particular emphasis on safeguarding the independence of the judiciary. This commitment has been evident through his unwavering respect for and compliance with recent court orders, notably those pertaining to the government's affordable housing program. It further reads that from the onset of his presidency, the president took deliberate measures to rectify past injustices by appointing judicial officers who, due to executive impunity, had been unjustly denied their rightful appointments. In his steadfast belief in the autonomy of the judiciary, the head of state also purposefully increased the budget allocation to support the judiciary's operational needs. We, however, agree with the Law Society of Kenya that executive impunity is unacceptable. However, legislative impunity by its own measure is also unacceptable, and so is judicial impunity. As a believer in the Constitution, President Ruto recognizes the imperative to lead by example in defending our constitutional values. This includes shielding innocent citizens from judicial misconduct perpetrated by corrupt officers colluding with vested interests. Corruption, whether within the judiciary, the executive, or the legislature, and indeed among the general public, must not find refuge behind the shield of judicial independence. It is our duty to expose and hold accountable those who engage in corrupt practices, whoever they may be and wherever they are. Now, the statement further reads, historically, Kenya has been held back by a few corrupt individuals and those with vested interest who impede inclusive national development. This is a moment in history when our country has a chance to break free from the chains of impunity and realize the transformation mandated by the people and legislated by Parliament. This can only be achieved by countering the influence of vested interests and corrupt judicial officers. It would be a dereliction of the President's oath of office and a betrayal of the people's mandate to allow their hopes and aspirations to be obstructed by corruption and impunity. Just last month, independent institutions were stopped from charging suspects of corruption. Should individuals investigated by the DCI and the EACC find refuge in courts to circumvent the criminal justice system, it is unacceptable that such suspects are now roaming free in our streets with impunity. No stretch of imagination can baptize this as judicial independence. It is indeed judicial impunity. The statement further reads, shall we tolerate the plight of millions of young people languishing in unemployment? Shall millions of Kenyans persist in enduring impoverishment due to exorbitant medical bills and the loss of loved ones, lacking access to universal health coverage? Shall millions of our fellow citizens continue living in squalor with 7 million Kenyans residing in slums? We are back to the clamor for judiciary reforms last witnessed during President Mwea tenure, when it was said, why pay for a lawyer's services when you can pay a judge? We must never allow the return of such impunity in Kenya. The executive is mandated to deliver to the people after an election. Should the president fulfill commitments to the people and their needs, Or should the executive seek concurrence from the judiciary to deliver on what the people voted for? That is a statement that, as you see on your screen, is signed by the State House spokesperson, Hussein Mohammed. And like I said, we just received it in our newsrooms, in response to the judiciary fighting back today, titled Just for the Record. And in case you missed it, I'll take you through the first line of this statement again, if we could have it on the screen. The Law Society of Kenya has today purported to advise President William Ruto on constitutionalism and specifically the independence of the judiciary. They need not. That right there is news just in from the Executive Office of the President, setting the record straight. Let's move on now. After President William Ruto raised concern over the abuse of the judiciary, alluding that some members of the judiciary were being bribed to sabotage certain government agendas, political leaders are divided tonight over the president's approach. Paul Mwea with more.
The judiciary cannot be abused by a few corrupt judicial officials.
President William Ruto's remarks on Tuesday while in Nyandarua County have since caused controversy to spark some political leaders who now cite them as an indication of the return of totalitarian rule in the country. Speaking in Mombasa County, the leader of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, Raila Odinga, has called out on President Ruto, adding that his word towards the judiciary are of no goodwill, that his administration should respect the independent system.
On the subject of Mr. Ruto's latest strange rage, the judiciary is too critical to the well-being of our country and our democracy, making it extremely important that we call Ruto out and tell him that he has crossed the line.
The implementation of the affordable healthcare and affordable housing projects had obtained stoppage orders from the court after their implementations were challenged for the lack of transparency, among other issues. Odinga has pointed out by citing examples that the judiciary is also facing corruption challenges and that the Kenya Kwanza administration has led in hijacking some of the court rulings to favor the state.
But Ruto cannot convince us that the judiciary is more corrupt than the executive branch of the government, which he leads. The worst case of executive corruption, of impunity, right now is the acquittal of Mr. Henry Rotich over the Aror and Kimarel dams, where hoping 63 billion Kenya shillings was lost. The executive went all out to ensure witnesses were never summoned, or those summoned were never questioned. The entire plot was to save Mr. Rotich and close the case. Ruto is not outraged by that.
In addition, Odinga alleges that some members of judiciary have been interfered with for refusal to be convinced. On another twist, a member in the cabinet, CS Lance Alice Wahome, has sustained the attacks against the judiciary, citing that the government would put an end to the judicial impunity at any cost.
As I stand on this side, tutajenga manyumba. Hatukwami, tunaendelea. We will continue and we will not accept anybody who is not focusing on our focus. Wewe kama utakuja hapo katikati, nakwambia tutapita na wewe.
In her remarks, Wahome says that corrupt judges and graft beneficiaries were working together to prevent Kenyans from developing. Paul Mwea, TV47, Mombasa.
Thank you so much, Paul Mwea, for that. Now, the Court of Appeal will now deliver its ruling on the legality of the Housing Fund levy deductions on the 26th of this month. This comes after the High Court of Kenya declared the housing plan levy as unconstitutional.
A 3-judge bench of the Court of Appeal led by Justice Lydia Chode are expected to deliver a ruling on whether the government's housing levy plan followed the constitution in its implementation or not. But prior to that, the bench will also make a ruling within 24 hours if the decision of the High Court to stop implementation of housing levy till the 10th of this month will be thrown away or stayed until the final ruling. Among those who petition on the housing levy include the Attorney General, the Kenya Revenue Authority, the National Parliament and the Treasury, seeking the Court of Appeal to throw out the decision of the High Court that the housing levy plan was unconstitutional. Those who are in support of the decision of the High Court include Okiya Omtatah. They wanted the court to hasten the implementation of the housing levy plan, terming it unconstitutional. Nonetheless, President William Ruto vowed to deal with those objecting the government's housing levy plan, which is currently underway. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Paul Kirobi, for that. Now, tonight, the ongoing crackdown of the outlawed Mungiki sect in the Mount Kenya region has split leaders from the region allied to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. So bad are the divisions that Deputy President Gachagua has said he is ready to sacrifice his political career to eradicate the outlawed gang in the region. President Uhuru Kenyatta's allies have told the government to stop profiling innocent youth from the region as Mungiki adherents.
The arrest of more than 200 alleged Mungiki suspects in Nyeri on Sunday, headed for Kafiruni grounds to attend former Mungiki leader Maina Njenga's meeting, has become a hot political potato in the region, causing a split between Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and former President Uhuru Kenyatta's camp.
We are here to say that you cannot criminalize Kikuyu young men. All those people who are arrested, they were never arrested from Kibiroine. They were arrested on the streets of Nyeri. And therefore you want to ask the court to tell us, or the prosecutor to tell us, what is wrong with being a Kikuyu young man?
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua warned on the day the alleged suspects were freed from custody on Tuesday that there will be no let-up in eradicating the gang, saying he is ready to pay the political price.
Let nobody tell us, Your Excellency, na mimi niko tayari, if there is any political price to be paid to protect these women and our young girls. Kama kura itakosekana kwa sababu ya hiyo, afadhali ikae. Afadhali ikae. We cannot. Hatuwezi kubali. And I want to ask our young people, tafadhali vijana wetu, msikubali kutumika vibaya. Mwende mkachukue kodi kwa watu ya matatu kupelekea mtu ajenge manyumba.
Kenyatta's allies, who dismiss claims of Mungiki resurgence in the region, have told the government to stop profiling Mount Kenya youth as Mungiki.
Why are you lettering maneno mingi kwetu? Ati kwa sababu amesema yeye ni chairman wa ama ni party leader wa Jubilee, unaanza kupabalika. Ngoja kidogo iendelee tu na njia hiyo. Umeharibu elimu, umeharibu insurance, hiyo vitu yetu unauta mpaka KCC, unauza hata KCC na KICC, unauza. Wewe ngoja tu.
The former president's Jubilee Party wing declaration to mobilize and sensitize Mount Kenya region on the high cost of living is said to cause jitters in the Kenya Kwanza camp, as it's perceived as Kenyatta's return to active politics ahead of the 2027 polls.
The former president, please, hawa wa Kenya walikuheshimu wakakupea miaka 10. Wacha kutumia pesa yako kusponsor vijana waende maandamano. Wacha kusponsor makesi katika mahakama ati wapige housing project yenye inaajiri hawa vijana.
Despite critics arguing the Mungiki resurgence issue has been politicized, politicians across the divide are also said to be exploiting the issue, including former Mungiki leader Maina Njenga, taking advantage of the region's youth hit hard by the high cost of living, while Gachagua continues to remind the region of the horror unleashed by the gang when it was active.
Na hapo 2 months ago walikuwa wameanza kwenda kwa stage kuchukua pesa, kwenda kwa hardware kuchukua pesa, kwanza kuandamana na wamama. Mnataka tuwakubalie? It cannot happen.
An attempt by Maina Njenga to extend an olive branch to Gachagua in September last year fell on deaf ears, after the DP said he cannot negotiate with a criminal gang.
So hata sisi mwache kutusukuma sana, hata kutumia askari hata saa 7 ya usiku, saa 8. Sima mambo ni kujadiliana. Tuiteni tukae chini pamoja na nyinyi.
But we cannot have any discussion with an outlawed criminal gang. We can't. First, they must denounce violence.
Despite Kenyatta yet to hand over the Mount Kenya kingship mantle, Gachagwa's allies maintain he is now the region's kingpin as the most senior elected leader from the region. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Thank you, Apollo Kamau, for that. Now, President William Ruto has called on the warring parties in the Sudan conflict to embrace dialogue and work towards the attainment of lasting peace. This comes after the leader of Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, arrived in Kenya on Wednesday and held talks with his host, President William Ruto. General Mohammed was also expected to hold a press conference earlier this evening, but that has since been postponed. George Maringa now reports.
As had been expected, at around 11 a.m. local time, the aircraft carrying General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemedti, touched down at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Nairobi. He was received by, among others, Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki and Intelligence Boss Nurdin Haji. Kenya is the last stop of Mohammed Hamdan's first trip abroad since the fierce fighting erupted between the RSF and the Sudanese army in mid-April. IGAD, an 8-nation East African bloc headquartered in Djibouti, is leading diplomatic efforts to broker a meeting between Dagalo and his rival, Sudanese Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. The warring generals have not met face-to-face since the outbreak of the conflict that has killed more than 12,000 people by some conservative estimates and forced millions to flee. Hamdan has also visited Djibouti, Ethiopia and Uganda on his regional tour and said he was committed to ending the conflict. Upon arrival at State House Nairobi, President William Ruto welcomed his guest to his other home, referring to him as his brother.
My good brother. Welcome to your other home. Thank you.
The Sudan Army has always accused Kenya of supporting RSF. Following the meeting between the two, President William Ruto called on the warring parties in the Sudan conflict to embrace dialogue and work towards the attainment of lasting peace. The president lauded proponents of the Jeddah initiative for agreeing to work with IGAD. He observed that IGAD and the African Union are well positioned to mediate in the Sudan situation, and I quote, "The Jeddah talks should bring about a political settlement that would bring a lasting solution to the people of the Sudan." He commended General Hamdan and the RSF for their commitment to ending the conflict in the Sudan through dialogue, saying there cannot be a permanent solution without the involvement of RSF. The president said that Kenya is prepared to go the extra mile to ensure peace is restored in Sudan, saying Kenya is not looking for anything other than a peaceful resolution and a stable neighbor. On his part, General Hamdan commended Kenya for its efforts to resolve the conflict in the Sudan. He expressed their support for IGAD resolutions, describing them as the roadmap to achieving lasting peace and stability. The visiting RSF leader was supposed to hold a press conference at 6 p.m., but just about 48 minutes before then, the media was informed that the press conference had been rescheduled. Time will tell how the peace process turns out in the Sudan. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
Right, George Maringa, thank you so much for that. Now, the National Treasury has released 31.34 billion shillings as capitation for learners in primary and secondary schools ahead of school reopening next week. Now, the release comes a day after Azimio leader Raila Odinga threatened to move to court over capitation, accusing the government of subjecting children and teachers to undue suffering. Andreen Kilemi now reports.
It is a sigh of relief for parents, teachers and learners in primary and secondary schools after the National Treasury released 31.3 billion shillings for learning in primary and secondary schools as capitation for the first term ahead of school reopening next week. The move follows Azimio leader Raila Odinga's statement on Tuesday that he would take legal action, alleging that the government was causing unwarranted hardship to children and teachers by withholding funds. Odinga claimed that secondary schools had received only half of the expected funds. Out of the 31.34 billion shillings released today, 4.74 billion shillings will go towards free primary education for term 1, while 7.60 billion shillings will go to junior secondary schools as capitation for first term. A budget of 2.80 billion shillings is allocated for covering school examination and invigilation fees, while 16.20 billion shillings is designated for free day secondary school. The disbursement of the funds is expected to substantially reduce the substantial outstanding debts that education institutions have already accumulated. Andrin Ekilemi, TV47.
All right, time for our very first commercial break here on the Daily Report. But don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
Right, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's now take you to Meru County, where coffee farmers in Kaguru area South Imenti constituency have now come out to ask the government to assist them during the back-to-school period so that their children can go back to school. The farmers, who have not been paid since April last year, said the issue is because of the private milling company which they were working with, which had its license revoked. The farmers have urged urged the government to intervene and ensure their coffee beans are processed and ground on time. Another incident that harmed their economic activity was the stealing of over 2,500 kilograms of coffee, an incident that is still being investigated. Mary Senator Kathuri Murongi, who doubles up as a coffee farmer, is urging the government to look into the matter and ensure farmers are assisted.
New KPCU ni kama haina capacity ya kubeba kawa yote ile iko katika region hii. Tayari hii society imepeleka kahawa huko New KPCU kutoka mwaka jana, na mpaka saa hii only P1 ndio wamefanya meeting, na kuna P2 na P3, na New KPCU wanasema bado hawajamalizana na P1 za society zote za Kenya. Kwa hivyo ningeomba serikali kupitia reforms zile ziko na the deputy president, tuone kama tunaweza angalia hata ile kahawa imerara sana kwa New KPCU iweze kupewa other millers with the same conditions, ndio waweze kusaidia wakulima. Kama hapa wakulima wamekaa, huu ni mwaka wa pili hawajalipwa kahawa yao.
Sehemu ya kahawa yetu tayari ilikuwa sagiwa milling, ilikuwa imefanywa milling sehemu yake. Hiyo ingine wakakuwa cancelled, ikakuwa hawawezi endelea na ile kazi yao.
The investigation that is happening, let it be fast. We've sold our coffee the whole year. We haven't gotten any pay yet, and the farmers are desperate. We didn't even enjoy Christmas. We didn't even have fee. We don't have fees to take our children to school.
Listen, for decades now, paper and plastic has dominated the recycling sector as thrashed products, which are used as raw materials for products. But did you know that your used kitchen oil could be recycled for biodiesel? Did you actually know that? So listen, in our special segment today, our reporter Willie Dennis Njuru conveys a story of a waste oil collecting company that is producing fossil fuel from cooking oil.
There are a few reasons as to why you and your friends may love the way most foods taste, especially fried foods. Taste buds constantly adapt to the food you eat and enjoy its taste. Equally, our sense of smell plays a big role in how we perceive flavor. The aroma of the food travels up to your nostrils and interact with your olfactory bulb and make it more enjoyable. From chicken to fish to fried potatoes is a delicacy to many, resulting to huge utilization of cooking oils.
The difference between the fresh oil and the cheap but used oil is not so much in terms of price. But the big difference is that if you buy the fresh one, you can use it much longer than if you take the old one. So take this extra few shillings to do it fresh, and you use it longer at home, but not take the old and just use it for a day.
But amidst this gastronomic euphoria lies a challenge. The proper disposal of used cooking oils, a predicament with far-reaching consequences for the environment and wastewater systems. These oils, often underserving, contribute to clogs and complications.
We use the fryer to fry different types of food, be it fish, be it potatoes, be it chicken, and at the end of the day, you cannot reuse that oil. So every day we have like 20 liters of used oil which cannot be reused, and it used to give us a lot of trouble in the way to dispose it.
With serious health complications afflicted with long utilization of burnt oils that are said to be cancerous.
The used oil can be can bring a lot of hazard. It's not very healthy because sometimes they've been used to deep fry different food items and can cause a lot of damages to your body. So when you're eating food from the street, be very careful.
This is a tremendous health hazard for Kenyan people because used cooking oil is generating dioxins, trans fats. This means cancerous, heart diseases, heart problems with your the whole things in your body, and lowering down the average health level.
It could be better days for the citizens as a European waste oil collecting company is collecting the used oils from the country for renewable biodiesel that will decarbonize our environment, where a kilogram of used oil is said to reduce 3 kilograms of carbon emissions by vehicles.
We collect used cooking oil for our feedstock and process it to renewable fuel in order to decarbonize our transport sector.
Now we are able to dispose it in a more hygienic and environmental friendly.
The waste oils are picked from outlets after a while of collection and with a stipend in return of close to 100 shillings per kilogram. Then they are brought to the capital city where they are first filtered for all impurities, then moved to these drums.
Now you want to pump the filtered used cooking oil into the tanks. First, I'm pumping in this first tank number 1.
For the hard oils, they undergo heating to 150 degrees Celsius inside these boilers. Then the liquid is piped and stored to these large containers, awaiting further smelting to fit export containers.
It's far beyond a business. It is part of a symbol also for the Kenyans that work here. What Austria does and what's possible.
With hundreds of tons of cooking oils in our kitchen and restaurants daily, Kenya stands the threshold of a lucrative venture, sales and exports for recycling, a prospect that is not only promising economic gains but also foresee a future where these recycled oils may safeguard the vitality of our automobiles.
You have to be aware of 2 things. Number 1, used cooking oil or not fresh oil in your kitchen, in your fryer, is causing drop by drop and health issue for your kids.
The oils, you must be careful how you use you cook your food with the oil you're using. Because sometimes you use oil which has been reused and has so many particles, it has already been exposed to different temperatures, and then you cool it and reuse it again. It will have some effect on your body.
As the global oil prices surge, this opportunity emerges not only as a business boon, but as a benevolent gesture towards human health and environmental equilibrium. It's a narrative that invites a shift towards sustainability without the excess of oil consumption.
After all said and done, throughout here to the export country in Europe, what was collected in the kitchen later undergoes recycling and back to our fuel as diesel for our vehicles. Reporting for TV47 from industrial area in the capital city, I'm Willie Dennis Njiru.
Great piece there, Willie Dennis Njiru Asante. So let's move on. The business community and residents of the Fathers town in Mwea East Sub-County are up in arms over increased cases of insecurity that has seen shops broken into and goods worth millions of shillings stolen. Led by Japhet Murimi, the residents demand that the police officers at the Fathers AP should be transferred as they are used to taking small bribes and are working together with criminals to frustrate business people. This comes after thieves broke into a shop, making away with items of unknown value at the night of Monday, the 1st of January 2024. The residents raised alarm, leading to the arrest of a suspect who they handed over to the police. However, the suspect was released almost immediately under unclear circumstances, which made the residents temporarily close the Makutano-Embu highway to express displeasure of the police officers.
Tumepatwa na janga kubwa sana, hata tulistuka tu kulala vyema juu kwa jirani yangu kulivunjwa usiku, na hawa watu hawakuwa na huruma juu walibeba mafuta wakabeba sukari na tena hata wakachokora hiyo mlango baya sana. Na tuko na security hapa mahali hapa, tuko na police post, na hiyo police post walikuja kuchelewa na hata hawakutusaidia.
Wa polisi hawasaidii watu. Kama ni mkora akishikwa, bandaya ya kushika huyo mtu unapata wamemwachilia. Mbora tu wapatie kitu kidogo, hawataki kitu kingine. So mimi vyenye ningeomba hawa watu hawafai kuwa huku, wanafaa waende kabisa. Na kama ni hata kama ni kupelekwa Mandera wapelekwa huko. Huku hatuwataki kabisa.
Now, Busia Azimio MPs have called on the Kenya Kwanza administration to rein on school heads, forcing parents to purchase school uniforms at exorbitant prices from schools at the expense of market prices. The members of parliament, Raphael Wanjala of Budalangi and his Funyula counterpart Oundo Mundenyo, have further raised concern over the increasing cost of education amid the high cost of living and noted that the trend will disadvantage children from poor backgrounds when schools reopen next week. The two were speaking at Lonyofu grounds in Budalangi during the annual Raphael Wanjala Super Cup finals, which were graced by the ODM Deputy Party Leader, Wycliffe Oparanya.
Kuambia wewe mwalimu hapa Kenya principal. Wewe mwalimu hapa Kenya mzima principal. I'm now talking as the chairman of implementation committee. Jaribu ulazimishe mtoto yoyote kununua uniform kwa shule yako, utaenda nyumbani. Hatutaki hiyo mchezo na ikome kabisa. Wazazi wanaumia, alafu wewe unakula mshahara, unaongezea shida. Tumesema hakuna mzazi anunue uniform mahali anataka. Kenya is a liberalized market. Hakuna mtu ya control mwingine. Wewe unataka kuushia mtu uniform 15,000 na kuna ule anaweza kumushia na 4,000. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Enda nunua kwa ule anaweza kuuzia 1000 ngapi? 4.
Ile siku ya Uhuru Kenyatta, school fees watoto wetu ilikuwa control, ilikuwa chini. Lakini tangu Kenya Kwanza ikuja kama serikali, imepandisha kila kitu. Ukiangalia school fees structure ya mwaka huu iko tofauti na ile mwaka uliopita. Kwa hivyo Wakenya tunawaambia, sisi wenyewe tulisema sijui uto, sijui nini, sijui hasala, sasa tukule ujeuri wetu.
To Mombasa now, and the county government has directed all businesses to ensure compliance in paying their taxes, penalties or interests in the new year. To aid the financing of various county government services and projects, including a free education program for all public ECD school-going children to begin July this year. At the same time, Mombasa Governor Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir has waived an estimate 150 million shillings penalty arrears owed to them by the single business permits for 2023, citing that the move will enable them to start afresh in full compliance. He has also announced new changes to include a rapid response team with a digital county identification card who will collect the penalties and any arrears effective February 2024.
Kwa mfano nguo,
wale ambao kwamba walikuwa ni wa single business permit, tumesamehe zile interest na penalties. Waliolipa ni wengi, wale ambao kwamba hawakuweza kucomply ni wachache. In fact, it is way less. Lakini pia sio sawa, hususan ikiwa tumeweza kuzipunguza zile bei. Sio sawa jirani yako awe ameweza kucomply na wewe usicomply. Na ndio nikasema ya kwa watu wasiumie zaidi, kwa sababu kisheria riba yake ni 3% on a monthly basis. Lakini ikifika Januari tarehe 30, the enforcement will have to start. I've asked the Department of Education to calculate a capitation per child, the same way it is done in secondary and primary schools. The only difference that is there is that I want to do this in a manner that it is going to be 100% free. We will be able to now get that money. The issue of where we'll get that money, again, my intent is to make sure that we have good financial prudence. That is the only way we can be able to survive as a county.
Now, this is TV47 Sports News. Remember, you now have a chance to win amazing prizes like an all-expense-paid trip to Mombasa Beach Hotel, Mbuzi, airtime, cooking oil, bus fare, and other prizes with Radio 47 and ClickBet. To participate, dial *448# on your phone and follow prompts.
TV47 Sports, brought to you by Kulik Prize and Radio 47. Make your festive gaming experience memorable. Tune in, play, and stand a chance to unwrap delightful surprises all December long with the Radio 47 and Kulik Prize.
Right, now Busia Elites and Busia Combined were crowned champions of the inaugural Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba Soccer Trophy after winning their respective matches at the Siagonjo grounds in Budalangi, Busia County. Busia Elite defeated Harambee Starlets 7-6 through penalty shootouts after the two teams played to a 1-1 draw during regulation time. Busia Combined bagged the men's title after beating Harambee Junior Stars 2-1 in a fiercely contested final. Speaking during the event, Sports CS Ababu Namwamba said talents identified from the one-day event will be incorporated into Talanta Hela youth team, which is set to participate in the Mediterranean International Cup in Spain in March this year.
Kwa muda wa mwaka mmoja tumerejesha uhai katika michezo na hasa katika mchezo wa kandanda. Mwaka huu mwaka ambao umepita 2023 umeshuhudia manufaa makubwa na mabadiliko makubwa katika kandanda. Tulifanya jitihada za dharura, nikakutana na rais wa shirikisho la kandanda ulimwenguni Bwana Gianni Infantino, na marufuku ya Kenya ikafutiliwa mbali. Kenya ikarudi kwenye rada ya soka ulimwenguni. Na kwa muda wa mwaka mmoja tangu marufuku hiyo iondolewe, kandanda yetu na michezo kwa jumla imepanda kwa kiasi kikubwa sana. Tunaweza sema leo bila shaka ya kwamba Kenyan sport is on the right trajectory. From whatever angle you look at it, we are on the right path, we are on the right trajectory.
United and Brighton and Hove Albion played out to a 0-0 draw.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
What's making the headlines? What does it mean to you? How does it affect you? We answer all these questions against local rivals Villarreal, marking the first time.
Wanasema wasemao kuwa elimu ni bahari haishi kwa kuchotwa. Wakati mwingi natangamana na wanafunzi madarasani, sio kama mwalimu bali kama nahodha kwenye kipindi cha tasnia ya elimu. Na iwapo utanikosa madarasani, basi utanipata nyanjani nikisaka habari zenye usawa, ufasaha na ukweli. Na iwapo utanikosa nyanjani, bila shaka utanipata studioni hapa nikisoma habari na kuendesha mijadala mikomavu. Mimi ni Andrin Kilemi, mpenzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili na elimu kwa jumla.
They say money makes the world go round. So let's slow things down a bit. Put things in perspective. From the markets to the streets to the stocks, we make the complex comprehensible. Join me, Hibak Said, on TV47 Business News for market insights like never before.
What's making the headlines? What does it mean to you? How does it affect you? We answer all these questions every Sunday for half an hour